He said weekends were for work, but I found his name carved into someone else's heart. The week always began the same way. His soft good morning texts, the espresso waiting at my desk, the way his laughter wrapped around my shoulders like sunlight through blinds. He knew my schedule better than I did. Every Monday, dinner at Luna on Market Street. Every Wednesday, a late-night walk after his client meetings. Every Thursday, he'd kiss my forehead before vanishing into Friday silence. I told myself it was ambition, the price of dating someone successful. But even perfection hums with static if you listen close enough. A message unanswered. A photo cropped too tightly. A weekend that never existed for me. I didn't know it yet, but I was loving a man who divided time like a magician, letting me see only what he wanted to be real. Every weekday felt rehearsed. Same greetings, same affection, same ending. Talk to you Monday. I told myself not to overthink it. Some people just needed space. But he had a habit of speaking in future tense, promising places we'd never go. When he smiled, his eyes never asked for more time. They demanded it. The rhythm of us was intoxicating, predictable, like a song stuck on repeat. Yet deep inside, I kept hearing another melody, the kind you hum when you suspect someone else is listening. He said the weekends were impossible. Deadlines, he murmured, always kissing my hand before disappearing into the blur of Friday nights. I would spend those days in cafes, waiting for his name to light up my phone. It rarely did. Sometimes I'd scroll back to our messages, searching for proof that we were real, that he wasn't vanishing, just busy. It's strange how love can make absence feel almost romantic. I learned to measure affection by consistency. If he texted at noon, he must be thinking of me. If he canceled dinner, it was for something important. That's how it works when you're in love with someone disciplined. You call their absence devotion. But every devotion has its blind spot. I didn't realize I was falling in love with only half his life. The week ended with silence. No messages, no excuses, just the quiet space where his presence used to live. I told my friends he was probably busy, but my voice cracked on the last word. But I didn't know yet that truth was waiting, patient on the other side of Friday night, waiting to undo everything I thought love was. Fridays had become my least favorite days. I could feel the distance before he even said goodbye. He'd smile, say, "I'll call you Sunday night," and vanish into that pocket of time where I didn't exist. I started noticing small things. The faint scent of sea, salt on his jacket, receipts tucked into his car's glove box from towns I'd never visited. Once, I thought I saw a strand of blonde hair on his coat. It was probably nothing, I told myself. But nothing was quickly becoming everything. When you love someone who's hiding, even silence starts to sound like confession. At work, I started noticing how often my phone stayed still. Hours passed without a message. My coworkers teased me. "You're mystery man working hard again." And I laughed like it didn't sting. Jared, from the desk across mine, looked at me longer than usual that day. "You ever wonder," he asked quietly, "what someone does when you're not around?" The question landed like a slow burn. I brushed it off, but my pulse betrayed me. I'd always trusted what I saw. But what if I was only seeing what he allowed? That night, the city hummed while I stood on my balcony, scrolling through our messages. There were gaps in his replies I'd never questioned before, entire weekends erased by busyness. I zoomed in on one of his photos, a mirror behind him reflecting a shoreline, not his apartment, not anywhere we'd been. My chest tightened, breath catching in fragments. I closed my eyes and whispered, he wouldn't lie. But even in the still air, the city felt like it was laughing at me. Saturday came and the silence hit differently. I walked through the farmer's market, surrounded by color and laughter, yet every sound felt far away. I dialed his number once, no answer. Twice, Still nothing. Then his text arrived. In a meeting all day. Miss you. It was 11:47 a.m. Who has a meeting by the sea? That's when I noticed the reflection in a vendor's glass display. A couple walking past, holding hands. For a moment I swore it was him, but when I turned, the crowd had already swallowed them whole. By Sunday evening, I told myself I was overthinking it. He called right on cue, his voice soft, the perfect balance of exhaustion and affection. "Bro, weekend," he said. But I couldn't stop thinking of you, and I believed him. I wanted to. Maybe love isn't blind. It's just deeply invested in the illusion of light. I hung up, smiling through the ache, unaware that the truth was already echoing beneath his words, waiting for the right silence to surface. It started as curiosity. Just one weekend, I told myself. One drive to prove my mind wrong. I followed his car through the city, my hands trembling on the wheel. He never looked back once. He took the highway south toward the ocean, where the fog swallowed everything. My pulse thudded like a countdown. He turned off near a sign that read Mariner's Cove. I parked 2 streets away and waited. Then I saw him, walking down the boardwalk, hand brushing another woman's arm. I wanted to scream, but my body refused to move. I had become a ghost haunting my own love story. He walked like someone at peace, hands loose in his pockets, voice light, laughter real. The woman beside him was smaller, her hair catching sunlight as she smiled at him the way I used to. They looked ordinary, intimate, right? That was the cruelest part. I stood behind a wall of dune grass, my breath shallow, watching him exist freely in a life I wasn't invited to. Every gesture was a confession. Every laugh, a goodbye I hadn't yet received. I told myself not to cry until I was alone. But as they walked away, his arm wrapped around her shoulder. My chest split open. I wasn't angry yet, just hollow. I took photos. Without thinking, proof that I wasn't crazy. Each click felt like a heartbeat breaking. I zoomed in until the pixels trembled. Then I saw it, the ring she wore, simple gold engraved on the inside. I couldn't see the letters, but I didn't need to. It wasn't mine. I drove home in silence, the road unraveling like a slow confession. His voice messages played on repeat. "You mean everything to me. Can't wait to see you Monday." I almost laughed. The hypocrisy was perfect, rehearsed. The hypocrisy was perfect, rehearsed. I wanted to delete every trace of him, but my finger froze above the screen. I needed his lies intact. Evidence, not erasure. The storm outside blurred the world into streaks of light, and for the first time I felt something sharper than pain. Clarity. When I finally got home, I stared at the photos until they stopped feeling real. I thought of calling him, demanding an explanation, but what would I even say? The truth had already spoken for it. I backed up the images, titled The Folder Weekends. Then I closed my laptop and let the darkness settle around me. The world outside kept moving. Cars passing, laughter echoing from somewhere below. But my world had stopped. He didn't just cheat. He compartmentalized love and scheduled me between lies. He lived like a pendulum, 2 lives swinging in rhythm, never colliding. During the week, he was the man who sent flowers to my office, called me his balance, kissed me like confession. On weekends, he became someone lighter, unburdened, barefoot in sand, sipping wine with her by the sea. I didn't exist in her world, and she didn't exist in mine. He had built an architecture of deceit so precise that even time obeyed him. Love, for him, was logistics. A calendar blocked out by lies that looked like affection. He once told me he loved architecture because it was about dividing space with purpose. I should have heard the warning then. He built walls between his lives as easily as sketches. One version of him for daylight, another for dusk. I used to think I knew him better than anyone. Now I realize I only occupied the part of him that needed validation, while she tended the part that craved escape. Between us, he found balance. Between us, he disappeared. I started replaying our conversations like old voicemails, listening for cracks in the perfection. He'd talk about deadlines, about the clients who drained him, but his voice always softened when he said, "I wish you were here." I realized later that he said it to both of us. The words weren't meant for the woman he loved. They were meant for whoever was listening. He was fluent in affection, but emotionally illiterate in truth. Maybe that's what makes betrayal so elegant. It speaks in familiar tones. Meanwhile, she, Lilile, woke to his weekend tenderness, unaware that love was rationed by weekdays. She painted him, literally, soft portraits in watercolor, the kind that made him look honest. Maybe she sensed it too, the way his phone stayed face down, or how he flinched when she said his name with too much affection. He had promised her something permanent, and in her quiet way, she believed, because belief is easier than truth when the lie feels like home. I didn't know any of this then, of course. All I had were fragments, his silences, her reflection in his photos, the faint perfume that wasn't mine. But when I looked back later, every detail lined up like evidence in plain sight. He hadn't built a love story. He had engineered a performance. And I was the audience, applauding his devotion while he exited stage left every Friday night. The cruelest part wasn't that he lied. It was how effortlessly I believed him. I invited him to dinner on a Tuesday, our night. The table was set the way he liked. 2 candles, red wine breathing by the window, pasta steaming in quiet anticipation. He arrived with that same soft smile, the one I used to trust without question. But this time, I didn't look away when he lied. "You've been busy lately," I said, my voice steady, my hands still. He reached for my hand, but I didn't move. There was no shouting, no tears, just silence and the sound of everything collapsing between us. For the first time, he didn't know which version of himself to be. I didn't accuse him. I simply asked questions I already knew the answers to. Who's Lila? The name hung between us, invisible yet heavy. His face changed, not guilt, but recognition. He didn't deny it. That was the part that hurt most. He just whispered, "You weren't supposed to find out." As if secrecy were mercy. I wanted to scream, but instead, I laughed, soft, broken laughter that filled the room like smoke. "You built 2 lives," I said, and forgot which one was real. After he left, I sat in the dark for hours. His scent still lingered in the air, clean linen and deceit. I replayed the conversation until every word turned hollow. My phone sat heavy in my palm, Lila's number glowing from the search I had done days ago. I hesitated. Was it cruelty to tell her, or kindness? The truth doesn't heal everyone the same way. But lies grow mold when left alone. I pressed call, and my heartbeat filled the silence while the phone rang. Lila's voice was softer than I imagined. Calm, uncertain, hopeful. "I think you've got the wrong person," she said at first. But when I told her his name, the silence on the line turned raw. There was no denial, just the sound of her breathing, like someone trying not to drown. "He said you were his client," she whispered. My throat tightened. We sat there, 2 strangers, connected by one man's choreography of deceit. "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. Neither of us had won. We were both living in the aftermath of his invention. We met the next morning in a small cafe halfway between the city and the coast. No one spoke for a while. She looked exactly like I imagined. Gentle, wounded, searching. We shared our timelines, our memories, our proofs. The pieces clicked perfectly, horrifying in their precision. When she started crying, I reached across the table, and she took my hand. We didn't blame each other. We blamed the man who taught us how easy it was to believe in versions of him. That morning, we didn't destroy each other. We became the witnesses of our own survival. The days that followed were quieter than grief. Too still, too clean. His number stayed in my phone, though I never called. Every corner of my apartment was a museum of what we used to be. The mug he left, the sweater still draped on the chair. I didn't throw anything away. It wasn't forgiveness. It was evidence of having survived. People think heartbreak ends with tears, but really, it ends with silence. The kind that makes you question if it ever truly began. He tried calling once. I let it ring until the sound became distant. Later, I listened to his voicemail. His voice calm, almost rehearsed. "I'm sorry for everything. I never wanted to hurt you." It didn't sound like guilt. It sounded like relief, as if confession had freed him more than the truth freed me. I deleted it halfway through, my finger steady this time. The moment the message vanished, I realized something terrifying. I no longer wanted answers. Lila wrote to me once. Just a short message. He tried to come back. I didn't let him. There was no bitterness in her words, only finality. I replied with a simple good. We didn't talk again. Our connection was built on a wound, and wounds aren't meant to be permanent bridges. I sometimes imagined her painting again, washing the color of him out of her brushstrokes. We were two different women with the same scar, learning how to live with truth instead of illusion. Noah didn't vanish. I saw him once across a crowded street weeks later. He looked smaller somehow, like someone edited him out of his own life. He didn't see me. Or maybe he did and pretended not to. Either way, I felt nothing. The absence of ache was strange, almost unsettling. Love had been replaced by clarity. And clarity, I realized, has no nostalgia. It only has direction. Eventually, I stopped checking the calendar. Fridays no longer meant vanishing. Sundays no longer meant waiting. My life filled with smaller, quieter things. Books, music, friends who didn't need explanations. The ghosts of what he did still followed me, but less like shadows, more like warnings. There's a strange peace in knowing the truth. It doesn't fix you, but it gives you edges again, something solid to hold when the world feels dishonest. I wasn't healed. I was just honest. And maybe that was enough. People say time heals, but it doesn't. It just rearranges the pain to something you can live with. Months passed, and the city began to sound like itself again. I started laughing at things that had nothing to do with him. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection in a window and almost not recognize myself. Not broken, just rewritten. I used to think truth was a punishment, but it became my permission. Oh, the version of me who waited for him no longer existed. She died the moment I stopped needing an explanation. One evening, I found an old voicemail of his I had missed deleting. For a second, I almost listened. But instead, I pressed play without sound. Watching the seconds pass, I realized how small he looked now, trapped inside a memory that no longer owned me. I deleted again, this time without hesitation. Maybe closure isn't about confronting the person who hurt you. Maybe it's about no longer needing to replay the story to prove it happened. Lila's artwork appeared online a few months later, a painting of a coastline, the same one where I'd first seen them together. Only this time, there was no one in the frame, just open sea and light cutting across the water. I stared at it for a long time, feeling something that wasn't anger or sadness, but understanding. She'd painted our closure. Two women who loved the same lie, finally standing outside of it, breathing clean air again. I went back to the ocean once, the same one that held his lies. The tide sounded different now, almost forgiving. I walked the same boardwalk he had walked with her, but this time, my steps were unaccompanied, unhurried. I didn't come to mourn. I came to reclaim the place where the truth first found me. It wasn't where love ended. It was where I began again. Alone, but not lonely. The sea doesn't keep secrets. It only returns what the shore is ready to face. When people ask about him now, I don't tell the story. I just say, he taught me everything I needed to know about honesty. The truth didn't set me free. It dismantled me until there was nothing left but the parts that could stand alone. I still believe in love, but not the kind that hides behind weekends. Real love doesn't disappear when it's inconvenient. It stays. And if it doesn't, it was never yours. I walk through the world lighter now. Not because I forgot him, but because I no longer carry what wasn't real.